Hello, in this lecture you will learn how to set up the SQL Server, also how to install it, how to go through all that difficult stuff. Now first of all I will show you how to download it, where to download it, and then we will get to the installation and then finally to the setup. Now in the beginning it may seem like an easy task, but I would suggest not to skip this part, not to skip this lecture, because the actual setup, what goes beyond the installation, is quite tricky and quite difficult, so you might want to watch that part. Now, I am in the Microsoft.com and I'm in this SQL Server download page or SQL Server page. And as you can see, you have several options. You have the SQL Server 2017, and then you have SQL Server in the cloud, and then you also have free specialized edition. So there are two of those. There's developer and there's Express. Now Express you can actually use in production. You can use it for anything you want. The only thing that could bother you is that there is a limitation of 10 gigabytes of data in the Express edition, but that should be sufficient in most cases, and once you reach that point you can simply go for the paid version. But you can go here, you can download that if you want. As you can see, you would simply install that, but we will go one step further and we will actually install the SQL Server 2019, because once you learn everything, that will be the current version and it's good to work with the most current version possible. So we now jump to the SQL Server 2019 page, and we will just click on download here, and we will choose the version, and the version here is on this computer it's for Windows, but also as you can see you can now use SQL Server on Linux, on Docker, and on something else. So as you can see, there are many options. It's not only for Windows anymore. You can use it anywhere you want, on any platform you prefer. But I will go with Windows because I am using a Windows computer here. So let's go with that. And I will simply go to the preview, SQL Server 2019 for Windows. Again, still in the preview mode, but once you will be able to actually work with it, it will be out and running. So I go to the preview here, and you will see that you need to put in some descriptions, some details of yours for the installation. So I will not be going through this, it's just a simple form, and once you have that you'll just download it and you will be fine. And then we will jump into the actual installation and the actual setup. Now you can see that we are in the installation, in this installation manager here. And so as you can see, you can choose three options. You have a basic type of installation, and then you have a custom one, and then you have download media, which I'm not gonna get into that. But normally you should probably just go with basic one, but I will go with the custom one and we will actually explore what's available here. So let's click on that, and as you can see I don't have enough space, so I'll just choose something else, some other drive, volume L. Let's try that. And we need not the root, we need some other folder. So let's say SQL test, And you have that, and it's good to install. Now, as you can see, it requires a lot of free space. It needs almost 9 gigabytes here. So let's try to install that. And then we'll go through everything step by step. So we will wait for the installation to complete, and then we'll get to everything else. So now that you have your installer set up, you can get to the interesting part. As you can see, you first find the planning, and you have many resources. You have security documentation, which is quite an interesting read it could be. And then you have hardware and software requirements, which probably isn't that interesting and that relative these days. But then you also have stuff like system configuration checker, and then you have data migration assistant. So if you had some older server or some other server, this one's gonna be very useful to migrate that whole data, but we need to go to the installation first. Need to go to the installation. Let's see if we can get to that. We can. And then here you can see a lot of different things as well. You can install the new installation, and then you can also install some other stuff. As you can see, you have SQL reporting services, then server management tools, which we will actually install later. And then you have server data tools, and as you can see, you can upgrade from a previous version. So if you have, say, 2012, you can go to 2017 and so on. And then you have this new thing, machine learning server, which I'm not going to get into, but if you are into that stuff, you can explore this option. So as you can see, there are many options to go through, but first of all, you need to install new Sql Server standalone installation, or add features to an existing installation, but of course you first need to have something installed. So let's click on that. Let's see what happens. So we have free addition. As you can see, you can have evaluation, developer, express, as usual. So we are going to go with evaluation this time. You could choose express if you prefer that, if you are actually going to use that further on your device. You should probably go with express, but it's gonna be pretty much the same thing. So you click next, and also if you have a paid version, more of those advanced versions, so you just click on enter the product key and you enter the actual key, and you are good to go with your license. But we are going with evaluation here, so we click next, and then you have the license terms. I have already read them, of course, and you click I accept the license terms and privacy statement. And it's checking some rules, that's all fine. Now if it doesn't pass, you just read the descriptions. Normally it should pass, you shouldn't have problems with that. And you can click on that one. I'm not gonna click on that one because I don't want to be bothered with those updates. Now, if you are going to actually use this in production mode and in day-to-day development mode, you probably should click on this checkbox. And then you go to next. So it's gonna install again setup files, and then we will create some rules. So we have Windows Firewall. Let's see the warning. It's quite common. So as you can see, rule Windows Firewall generated a warning. Now, what that means is basically firewall, it prevents access to your ports. So you have incoming and outgoing, and firewall prevents access to those ports. Now, SQL Server, it actually needs access to one of the ports. It's usually 1033, and we will get to that in the setup part. So you need to kind of uncover that in your firewall if you want to receive data from remote servers and stuff like that. So you need to let or grant rather the access to that port, that specific port, and since it is not granted here, you get this warning. But we won't be doing that yet. We'll just click next. We can do that. We will install that, and once we get to the setup, we will deal with the firewall as well. Now, as you can see, you have many features. So first of all, you need database engine services. As you can see, it says includes the database engine, the core service for storing, processing, and securing data. So obviously, just by reading that one sentence, you know that you need this, because this is actually the core of the whole thing. So you click on that, and then you have these other things. You have machine learning services. Again, if you are into machine learning, SQL Server will be the perfect tool for you. You can find all these crazy open source tools, but those are just a bunch of garbage. What you need to go for is SQL Server, and as you can see, you've got a lot of stuff built in. Microsoft is working a lot on that, and you also have this ML.NET technology now, so you just go with Microsoft technologies if you are building something machine learning, artificial intelligence related. But we won't be actually doing that here, so we will skip that. Then you have full text and semantic extractions. So let's see what's that. Some full text as well as semantic for key phrases. And on content stored, let's see. Now we don't need that. You can see that you don't need that. We don't need that, so let's go to data quality services, which we probably don't need as well. But let's see how much space does it take. It only takes 3 megabytes. Again, quite interesting, but we are not about that in this course. So then you have data quality client, client tools connectivity. Let's see how much that takes. Just 200, let's leave it. And then let's see what else. Integration services. So what's that? Includes the designer, runtime, and the utilities to move, integrate, and transform data between stores. This one is quite useful actually. You will be able to kind of retrieve data to certain storage units and then put in data again. So you'll see how that works later. And then you have these scale out masters. So let's try to put them in. They don't weigh anything, just in case. Then you have client tools backwards compatibility. So let's see how much is that. It's nothing. Let's leave that. And then you have client tools SDK. Well, we probably don't need that. But Let's put it in. Let's see how much space everything will take. And then you have this distributed replay controller. Let's put that in just in case again. And then you have distributed replay client. Let's put that in as well. And we don't need that. Let's see how much it weighs. Let's just put that in again. I'm showing you what you should put in if you are actually going to use this installation after you are done with the course. So you probably should have this stuff just in case. I mean, it only takes 10 or 20 megabytes. It won't really bother your system. And then you have some master data services. So as you can see, the platform for integrating data from disparate systems across an organization into a single source of master data. And you don't need that. You don't need that. As you can see, it takes quite a lot of space. You just don't need that. Now, what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna change my drive here. I want to do it in here, so I'm just gonna create a new folder. Let's say sqltsd live, let's call it. As you can see, I did another folder previously, which was for the installer. So you actually need to download the installer, and then you need to install the installer, and only then you can actually install the whole thing. So it's quite complicated, but it is manageable. Now, also one thing to note, you will need some space on your main drive. So that is always important to remember. And when you install SQL Server, when you install Visual Studio, and then when you install the Management Studio as well, you need some space in your main drive, usually your C drive. So you need to remember that and make some space there, even if you want to put everything in some other drive, which I'm doing now. And as you can see, drive L required this amount and drive C required this amount. So let's go to the next one. And let's see what we have here. It says please wait. And hopefully we won't have to wait for long. And we don't. Now you have instance ID, so you can kind of name your SQL service with some name. But we are using default instance. We don't need any fancy strange naming here. We're just gonna do with default. This is gonna be used in the connection string, so it's actually useful to have a decent name, not to make a mess of it, because connection strings are strings and it's easy to make a mistake in those strings. So let's go to the next one. We have server configuration. I believe we will see what we have. As you can see, the whole configuration is quite easy to do. You just have to know what you need to install, what you are going to use. Other than that, it's very easy. Now you have some service accounts. So you have SQL Server agent here, and you have account name for that. And then you have startup types. So we will go into that later actually, and if something isn't automatic, if something didn't start up, we will change that. But just in case, let's do automatic on all of them. We won't need to waste time later. So we have automatic, and then SQL Server browser, we need automatic as well. So then you have grant perform volume, maintenance task privilege, and we probably shouldn't do that. Just in case, we should leave that like that. Now let's go to the database engine configuration. So you can do two things with that engine. If you need to connect remotely, you should use mixed mode. So that is the connection directly to the engine. For the databases, you actually set up different users and you will connect with them in that way. So we will just leave it as a Windows authentication. So basically, once you launch the Management Studio, it will automatically pick up that instance of the SQL Server and it will automatically log in as well. And then you have data directories. Let's see, we have missing system administrator account. We need to add current. We don't need to do anything else here. Now we need to do data directories. We don't actually need to do anything here. As you can see, these are data directories. You have a backup directory. We will get into that later in this course. We will now need to just set it up. Now you have the temporary database. So again, you can leave it as it is unless you have specific needs to store different files in different places. Usually you will have different drive or different drive really for the backup. And then there's also file stream. Now about the file stream, we will get into that in a few lectures in this section for files. So we will talk about then, but for now, let's just do enable file stream for transact SQL access, and then enable file stream for file IO access. Allow remote clients access to file stream data. Okay, we will allow that. Again, we will go through that later, but let's just leave those in case we forget. So now let's move on. And you have integration services. So these are the other things that we checked on. We don't need to use any of that here. We just go through that like that. Don't need any of that. We don't need this one yet. And now it's ready to install. And you can double check what you have chosen, all those parameters here. But I will just click to install and you should do the same. To install, and now it will be installing. Once it is installed, we'll get to the actual setup. So now that you have it all installed, you need to go to this SQL Server Configuration Manager. Now, if you go to your Windows search, you just write SQL Server Configuration Manager, and you will see that result. As you can see, it has to be this little toolbox icon. And you have that, and then you need to go into SQL Native Client 11, and then you go to Client Protocols, and that is where you will deal with those connections. So if you want to establish connection strings, this is where you will go to set things up. Now before that, we will actually need the port 1433 opened. So that's 1433. And to do that, you go to your firewall and you go to advanced. So in the firewall here, you go to advanced settings. And then in the advanced settings, you go to the rules and you find all the rules. And then you create a new rule. You go to new rule. And then you go to port. And then you go to next. And then you do specific port, and it's important it has to be TCP, not UDP. You need TCP port, so that would be 1433. And then you click next. And then you do allow the connection. Nothing more to that. So you do everything here, and then you create a name. So let's say 1433, allow. And then do finish. That's it. You have your port opened. You don't need to do anything else. Now, you need to go to the TCP and you need to right click on that, TCP IP. You can use shared memory or named pipes, but I find TCP the most convenient. It works in every case. No matter what language you are using, it works well everywhere. So you just go to TCP/IP and you go to properties, and as you can see, you have this default port and you have everything set up, and it was enabled. It is enabled here. Now let's see what the others offer. As you can see, you have SQL Server network configuration, and you have the same things here. The difference is that named pipes are disabled here, so we don't care about the named pipes, we just care about TCP/IP. Let's see what's happening here. And that's enabled, and then IP addresses. This is what is interesting here. So we have TCP port, and dynamic port has to be set to nothing, and then you have to enable. So each port and each IP address needs to be enabled in order for you to actually use that. So we will be doing everything from the local host as much as we will be going into different programming languages. So the only thing we need to enable is this one, the 127.0.0.1. That's the local host IP address, and you have the same port 1433. You have that opened and enabled, and you are good to go. So let's click apply, and as you can see, to apply you will need to stop and restart everything, so we will try to do that as well. So let's click OK, and let's see if we can find the place where we would restart everything. So you need to restart the server. You need to restart. You just right click on that and do restart, so it does the stopping of the service, and then it restarts everything. As you can see, it's a Windows service. You have an ID, everything you need to have. You don't really need to care too much about this stuff. Just open up those ports. If you are using this remotely, you just go below to the other ports and you have everything open properly. It is very easy to do, although sometimes you may have some inconsistencies, so you might need to troubleshoot this stuff. But this has been around for a long time, so you have plenty of resources online for each specific error and problem. And with that, we are done with the SQL Server setup, and we will just do in the next lecture the Management Studio setup, download, and all that stuff.